Well, hey, as you can see, I am at work. I can't upload this at work, but I am going to go to town tomorrow, and I'll upload it there at the pizza place I always eat at. Anyway, I want to make a video. Uh, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in the UK 2 days ago, and he wanted to talk to me because he was feeling really bad and out and really depressed because he had just been mugged. Three guys jumped him right in front of his house, took all of his money that he had, which fortunately wasn't, enough to bankrupt him or anything, and got a black eye out of it. And he feels really bad, but what's worse than the physical assault and the theft, and the fact that the perpetrators will likely never ever be caught, is his feeling of absolute helplessness. There's nothing he can really do about it. There's nothing he can change in his routine that could prevent this. He can't defend himself, basically, is what I'm driving at. And I should stipulate that as far as I'm aware, this incident is unrelated to the rioting in the UK, at least directly. It's not happening in an area that's being where riots are happening. It's happening, I think he lives in Leeds, and unless muggers are just figuring that they're less likely to get caught, they're probably completely separate occasions. But anyway, this made me think about gun control and violence or whatever, and I made a video about comparing the UK and the US gun violence, gun crime, and I think I overlooked one enormous truism there. When there are different ways to rate and to register crime, and so some places, whether something is a murder or is not depends on whether it's actually determined in court or whether there's just a body, or there's lots of different things, so it's really hard to compare. But one thing I overlooked is the fact that the prohibition of owning a firearm is itself a crime. And there's no crime statistic that reflects that. There's no FBI study that says, well, look at how much guns are prevented from being owned in another country. That's a crime in and of itself. And this is a very common thing because people don't typically just think of state actions as being criminal, although they do recognize, at least theoretically, that it's possible. A real common, I remember reading in For New Liberty by Rothbard, he used the example that a lot of people have said that this or that particular group is on net more likely to be criminal, usually blacks or poor people or something like that. And so wouldn't it be a good public policy anti-criminal endeavor to say arrest and or eradicate all of that group, so say take all the black people and just throw them all in prison or kill them all? Wouldn't that reduce crime? And he goes, the obvious mistake in this reasoning is that the act of imprisoning and or killing or eradicating or in any way aggressing against this population is itself a crime, and one far greater in magnitude than anything it's alleged to prevent. And I think this is something that always has to be borne in mind when dealing with comparative statistics on gun violence. The fact that my friend in the UK cannot get a gun to defend himself is a crime, and there's no statistic to show that. And I'm not one to say that everyone needs a gun all the time. I don't carry a gun with me all the time, but I have a right to defend myself, and I should have that option. And if I am prevented from having that option, then the entity that is preventing me from doing that is aggressing against me, is harming me. And of course, this does not only apply to guns. This applies to drugs. This applies to income. You should, if someone prevents you from gaining income, even if you're not aggressing to someone, that is a crime. And so I think what we need to understand is that there's, and I think most of my subscribers do, is that there is a whole class of crimes that people don't even consider, namely crimes committed by states. And although I have not made a serious attempt to quantify it, I think you'd have to say that the magnitude of those crimes far outweighs those of all other non-state crimes combined. So I feel really bad for my friend and how powerless he is. It is, I'm not deluded enough to imagine the United States as being, utopia, libertopia or anything, but that is a big difference, is that, it's socially permissible in most cases, in most places, to arm yourself. And it is absolutely enraging and outrageous that the government in the UK would categorically deny this right to basically everyone. The royal family can do it. The prime minister, they have, aside from private security, I'm told that they can legally obtain firearms themselves. There are special exceptions for them, but no one else is. In fact, they're explicitly prevented from doing so or doing anything in their self-defense. My friend couldn't even take a baseball bat or a crowbar or anything like that. That's all illegal too. If he intends to use it for self-defense, it's a crime on him. So that legislation and the enforcement of that legislation is itself aggression. And it's an aggression that is extremely dangerous because it makes him much more vulnerable than he otherwise would be, both directly in the sense that since he can't defend himself, he's more vulnerable, and indirectly in the sense that by having a disarmed, defenseless populace, you actually incentivize the type of brigandry that he was a victim of. And he feels really bad about it, and he started saying, I want to come over there. And I don't know how serious he was about that, but he's been aggressed against twice. Once by the muggers, and again, or perhaps preceding that, by the state, which has denied him his most basic human right. Ted Nugent has a video out there where he's asked about gun control to sum up his ideas, and he does a very good job, I think, despite his many other flaws that I might disagree with, where he says it's not the Constitution, it's not the Bill of Rights, it's my life, my value to myself, that I will preserve myself. And implied and implicit in all that is the ownership and use of firearms and any other weaponry that you might deem necessary. And anybody or any group that denies you that prerogative, they are as evil as any slave owner or any tyrant in history. Anybody who says that you don't have, that it's beyond your authority to defend yourself is, that's the highest order of magnitude of evil that there can be. And unfortunately, this is pretty typical for governments. And even in the United States, the right to do this is not as enshrined as it should be. I would say that it's usually manageably doable to acquire firearms and to carry them if you want. However, the regulations that do exist are, of course, absurd, and they should also all be repealed. But it is a difference. If you're a libertarian or somebody in another country, I still think the United States is the place to go. That is one of the biggest reasons right there. And I'd reiterate that it's not because the Constitution that we have these rights. It's because so many American people agree with and support that idea that the government would have taken that away a long time ago if there weren't tens and tens of millions of people who would actively oppose them if they ever attempted to do so. So, yeah, we can never forget who the biggest criminals are. As Rothbard would say, it's a gang of, what is it, the mob writ large, or gang of thieves writ large. Uh, the muggers that robbed him took 20 pounds. I wonder how much he paid in taxes that week.